And now she's trying to reinvent herself because there's been so much blowback. And you can only imagine the studio calls about this woman behind the scene. Like, oh my God, we're $242 million in, and our lead actress hates our film, our actors, our storyline.
Jonah Platt, whose father helped produce the latest Snow White film, had some very harsh words for star Rachel Zegler.
For context, Variety wrote a report recently titled Inside Disney's Snow White Fiasco, Death Threats, Beefed Up Security, and a Social Media Guru for Rachel Zegler.
Ever wonder how just a few words can snowball into an industry-wide crisis? In Hollywood, one controversial remark can flip an entire multi-million-dollar film on its head. That's precisely what some say happened when Rachel Zegler, the rising star chosen to embody Disney's live-action Snow White, made a series of statements that have now plunged the Walt Disney Company into turmoil.
The movie that nobody wanted to see, and I mean that seriously, nobody wants to see this movie. Ticket pre-sales are nowhere near what Disney was hoping for. Let's just say if you wanted to buy tickets for the 9 p.m. show tonight, wherever you are in America, you'd be just fine.
Whether it's calling the prince creepy, branding the original animated classic dated and weird, or mixing promotional tweets with fiery political takes, Zegler's commentary has turned what was supposed to be a nostalgic blockbuster into a swirling storm of backlash.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
But that's only the start of this rabbit hole, because behind the scenes, legal threats, corporate divisions, and shareholder unrest are lining up to take center stage. When Disney first announced the remake of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, fans were divided yet intrigued. On one hand, viewers were curious about how the studio would adapt its first ever animated feature for a modern audience. On the other, many felt that the original was too iconic, too timeless to tamper with. Yet Disney pressed on. It spent hundreds of millions on production, boasting a cast that included household names like Gal Gadot for the Evil Queen and newcomer Rachel Zegler, fresh off her lauded performance in West Side Story, for the titular princess. At first, the whispers were promising. Reports of lavish sets, advanced CGI, and a forward-thinking script teased a mesmerizing retelling that could satisfy both fans of old Disney magic and those craving modern themes. But rumors soon began trickling out. Some within the company wanted to preserve the essence of the 1937 tale, while others insisted on ramping up social commentary to keep the story relevant. Then came the first on-set glimpses, photos that showcased a far more contemporary Snow White, with fewer dwarfs and more talk of an empowered heroine who doesn't dream of true love. It was a risky endeavor, and that risk was about to become a glaring reality. But that wasn't the whole story. From the moment Rachel Zegler began discussing her role, she didn't hold back. She publicly derided Prince Charming's role in the original film, describing him as a weird, almost predatory figure who barely knew Snow White. She labeled parts of the 1937 classic as problematic, insisting that her version would be a more modern woman, focused on leadership and independence over romance. Those interviews took on a life of their own. Fans of the original masterpiece were outraged, accusing Zegler of disrespecting Walt Disney's legacy. Then came her social media posts. Some included political statements about global conflicts, culminating in a particularly jarring moment when she inserted a political hashtag at the end of what was supposed to be a promotional tweet for Snow White. It didn't just create friction with fans. It apparently took Disney executives by surprise, too. Yet the actress continued. In red carpet interviews, talk shows, and casual TikToks, she repeated how she was bored watching the old version as a child, how the original message of dreaming for a prince to rescue you felt outdated. People who once cheered on her fresh talent started seeing her as a mouthpiece for misguided updates. And what happened next would shock everyone. Inside the offices of the Walt Disney Company, things were heating up. Executives grew anxious when they saw the uproar trending on social media. Not my Snow White, she boycott Disney, and a flurry of other hashtags urging fans to skip the remake. Allegedly, a rift formed between the corporate suits who believed in leaning heavily on modern messaging and those who feared that drastically altering a cherished fairy tale would backfire. Confidential memos soon leaked, alluding to top-level disputes. Producer Mark Platt and his team felt the film would usher in a new era of Disney storytelling, but others cautioned that the approach might go too far. After all, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs isn't just another film. It launched the entire Disney empire in 1937. Stripping away elements like the dwarfs, the iconic romance and the classic spirit risked angering loyal Disney devotees. Amid all this corporate tension, Mark Platt's own son, Jonah Platt, allegedly spoke out, suggesting that the film's leading lady was tarnishing the legacy and damaging the production's reputation. It was a bold move, one that showcased just how fractured even the producer's inner circle had become. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know, how could an adaptation that once had such promise trigger this much drama? But that wasn't the end of the chaos. In a stunning twist, reports emerged that Rachel Zegler had been summoned to meet with Disney's legal team, urgently and behind closed doors. Insiders described it as an emergency session, where top attorneys and corporate representatives laid out grievances over her public behavior. Alleged points of contention included Zegler's repeated jabs at the original film, the political statements tacked onto promotional posts, and potential breaches of her contractual obligation to uphold Disney's legacy. This was no small matter. Behind the fairy tale facade, millions of dollars were at stake, not to mention the goodwill of audiences spanning multiple generations. Some sources whispered that Disney might threaten lawsuits if Zegler's remarks were deemed harmful enough to sink the film's commercial prospects. Others noted that Zegler arrived with her own legal counsel, hinting that she was prepared to defend her right to speak openly, even if it clashed with Disney's conservative, family-friendly brand image. During this tense meeting, attorneys reportedly showed Zegler transcripts of her interviews. They pressed her on whether she'd been instructed by Disney to emphasize the film's modern spin, or if she'd gone off script and tarnished the studio's brand on her own. According to rumors, she fired back that she was simply following corporate talking points, which had always highlighted a progressive retelling. By now, the tension within Disney had reached a boiling point, but that wasn't the only shocker lurking around the corner. Even as Rachel Zegler was called in for this high-stakes confrontation, the public outrage showed no signs of cooling off. Word spread that the film's budget had ballooned to an astronomical figure, somewhere between $240 and $270 million, yet Snow White seemed poised to flop at the box office. Early tracking numbers painted a grim picture, with predictions that it might struggle to clear even half its budget in domestic theaters. Fans took to social media to express their discontent. "They're destroying my childhood," wrote one user. "This is not Snow White. It's a cynical attempt at moral lecturing," said another. Meanwhile, Disney's shareholders started voicing alarm. For years, live-action remakes of beloved animated classics were a dependable cash cow. Suddenly, that formula seemed broken, potentially putting the studio's entire strategy in question. Would Zegler's off-color statements be the scapegoat for a film that might have been doomed by a misguided script? Or was Disney simply panicking at the prospect of losing millions and searching for someone to blame? In the midst of this uproar, the media latched onto every new development, often framing Zegler's words as the final nail in Snow White's coffin. Some industry commentators asked whether a single actress could truly sink a film. Others argued that the messy production and massive creative overhauls were far more damaging than anything Zegler had said. But that's not all. Another storm was about to break. According to leaked documents, Rachel Zegler insisted Disney's marketing team specifically wanted her to emphasize the film's radical departure from the original. "This Snow White is about more than romance," read one purported bullet point from promotional materials. "Highlight her leadership qualities," said another. In Zegler's view, these directives were a green light to be candid about how drastically the story had changed. Her lawyers pointed out that the studio put forth a narrative. "Our Snow White won't be defined by a prince." They claimed it was disingenuous for Disney to pivot around and act outraged after the backlash, especially if the actress was voicing exactly the message the studio had asked her to push. On the other side, Disney executives apparently felt she crossed a line by mocking the original film's charms and overshadowing the project with hot-button political stances. Meanwhile, rumors circulated that some Disney insiders suspected sabotage from within. Certain executives allegedly wanted to see the project fail to discredit the more progressive approach to fairy tales. That might sound like a stretch, but in Hollywood's competitive environment, where personal agendas, potential promotions, and big money deals collide, such theories are never off the table. And as the swirl of accusations intensified, another name popped back into the spotlight. Enter Gal Gadot, the iconic actress cast as the Evil Queen. She too had stirred controversy after expressing staunch support for Israel during a turbulent international conflict, a stance that clashed with Zegler's pro-Palestinian posts. Observers wondered, would Gadot also face a legal summons for possibly dragging Snow White into geopolitical debates? For now, it seems Zegler stands alone in Disney's crosshairs, but speculation persists that more cast members could be reprimanded if the film's financial fortunes don't improve. Behind the scenes, the environment was tense. Some claim that Gadot tried to remain above the fray, skipping direct references to Zegler's controversies in interviews. Others said the tension between the two actresses was tangible, that arguments flared on set whenever politics came up. Regardless, the damage to the film's image had already been done. Disney was now juggling brand preservation, legal threats, and social media-fueled outrage, an explosive mix that could easily blow up in any direction. But what happened next would make it all even more complicated. With fans disgusted, executives at odds, and controversy swirling, the once thrilling promise of a live-action Snow White now hangs by a thread. Could the film still find redemption if Disney scrambles to shift the narrative? Or is it doomed to become a cautionary tale about how quickly Hollywood projects can implode when agendas, politics, and social media collide? For years, Disney's approach to modernizing classics has prompted debate. Some praised the inclusivity and updated themes, while others mourned the loss of nostalgic magic. Now those tensions have hit a boiling point. Shareholders fear that a storied brand, built on innocence and wonder, risks permanent damage if it keeps churning out remakes that alienate loyal fans. Corporate heads worry that outspoken stars might overshadow the product itself, turning each movie into a battleground for cultural clashes. And watchers everywhere wonder, is this fiasco the final signal that Disney must rethink its strategy? If Zegler's emergency meeting ends with severe sanctions, or if she strikes back publicly, the fallout could be massive. A protracted legal battle would drag the film's controversies further into the spotlight, overshadowing any artistic merit the remake might have had. Even if the movie somehow ekes out a profit, the brand damage could last long after the final box office numbers roll in. And if rumors of behind-the-scenes power struggles and sabotage prove true, it could reshape how Disney greenlights and manages projects for years to come. One thing is clear: Snow White is no longer just a fairy tale about innocence. It's a living, evolving chapter in Hollywood's ongoing quest to balance tradition with progress. And it's a stark reminder that even the biggest studios with all their money and muscle can't always control the narrative once the public decides it's fed up. This happily ever after might be slipping out of Disney's grasp, and everyone, fans, executives, cast members, is left questioning how it all went so wrong, so quickly. The controversy around Snow White has been a whirlwind of shocking twists and turns, with star power and studio might colliding in a spectacle that's both mesmerizing and cautionary. From Rachel Zegler's bold remarks to Disney's frantic attempts to contain the fallout, this saga speaks volumes about how fragile even the most time-honored legacies can be in today's high-stakes, hyper-connected world. For better or worse, this live-action remake has exposed fault lines in the Walt Disney Company's approach, testing brand loyalty and fan patience on an unprecedented scale. As the dust settles or continues swirling, only one question remains: will Snow White become an example of how not to update a cherished classic, or could there still be a surprising twist waiting in the wings? The eyes of Hollywood are locked on this unfolding drama, and the final act has yet to play out. Whatever lies ahead, one thing's certain: the story of this beleaguered remake will stick in everyone's mind for a long time to come. And in an industry that thrives on reinvention, perhaps the greatest lesson is that no amount of modern messaging can overshadow the enduring power of authenticity, respect, and genuine storytelling. And with that, we close the chapter on an extraordinary chain of events, one that left fans divided, a studio scrambling, and a star caught in the crossfire. Yet in true Hollywood fashion, the show goes on, just not always in the way we'd expect. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more stories like this.